Passengers on board a Qantas flight from Auckland to Sydney were unaware a mayday call was made by their pilot yesterday. QF 144 lost one of its two engines about 2 hours into the flight across the Tasman. The mayday was then downgraded to a PAN, known as a possible assistance needed call. The call prompted a wide-scale response from emergency services. However, it was a textbook landing for the plane. Qantas crews have begun thorough investigations on the Boeing 737 to determine the cause of the failure. Passengers on board the flight have commended the pilot's efforts.
Landing was just it was like a kiss on the ground. It was beautiful.
A bit of a bang in the plane started to wobble a bit.
I heard the engine fall.
The captain on the way out.
On the way out, so which was lovely.
Obviously really well trained and really capable guy, so thanks so much.
Some satisfied passengers there. Joining me live now is Qantas First Officer and Vice President of the Australian and International Pilots Association, Mark Hofmeyer. Mark, thanks so much for your time. Obviously, we all travel so much. When you see something like this, it does raise a few anxieties when it comes to flying. But as we heard from one of the passengers there, it was like a kiss on the ground. Qantas PR will love that, of course. But was this all very textbook?
Absolutely. I mean, it's difficult to talk about exactly what happened because that's obviously going to come out in the investigation. But the thing is, a 737 has to be manually landed by the pilots on one engine. And as that customer said, they kiss the ground. So they're well trained. They make the difficult look easy. And it's a testament to the professionalism of our members and Qantas pilots for getting everyone on the ground safely.
Should that mayday call have been issued?
Look, it's very difficult to know what the pilots were thinking at the time, and I'm not going to comment on that. Look, a mayday is a reasonable thing to do. It very much, to start with, basically clears everyone out of your way and gives you priority. Yep. The fact that they then downgraded it, that can happen quite a bit. So I think, as I said, I'm not going to comment on what they did because I think the outcome's fantastic for everyone. And, you know, in the fullness of time, we'll find out why they did it. But as I said, the result was good.
When it comes to textbook, is a mayday call made often when this kind of things happens, or is it usually straight to a PAN as we know it?
Yeah, PAN call. So look, it's very much dependent on the situation, and that's why, you know, our pilots are trained to make that decision. Every situation is different. It's difficult to say you would do one or the other in a particular example. I back the fact that if our members and pilots made the decision to make that call, I would back them 100%.
And how much training do you get for this kind of thing?
You get a lot. It was amusing. I was actually in the Brisbane sim building yesterday getting text messages, actually doing my own, before I got in the sim, about this incident was about to happen. And I jumped in the sim and we did a bunch of engine failures then for training. So we do 4 simulator sessions every year. We often cover engine failures, particularly more limiting ones like an engine failure just on takeoff, because that's probably the more critical situation. So we're very well trained. We're very comfortable. Look, most pilots will go throughout their careers and it will never happen. But I think what this has demonstrated is, you know, when it does happen, our members are ready and willing to do the right thing. And we ended up with a safe outcome for everyone, which is fantastic.
And Mark, what causes an engine failure?
Look, it's lots of different things because, as you can understand, there's a lot of moving parts in an engine. It could have potentially been a turbine failure, maybe a fuel issue. Again, that'll all come out in the fullness of the investigation. It sounds from what you've said, or sort of I've heard from reports, there seemed to be a bit of shudder or vibration. Yeah. That tends to indicate could have been a surge or a stall or a failure internally. We'll find out exactly what that will be later. But as I said, they obviously handled it really well, kissed the ground on landing, and it was a great outcome. So
when this kind of thing happens, is it always to the nearest airport? Could this flight have kept going to New Zealand, or was the only option really to turn around to Sydney?
Well, it was actually coming from Auckland, so it was Auckland to Sydney. Yeah. So, and look, they ran our out. So, yeah, I think the book says plan to land at the nearest available airport. The pilot then makes an assessment. Now, it may well be that the nearest airport might not be long enough, or maybe the weather conditions there aren't suitable for the landing. So again, what people need to realise is, as well as controlling the plane and managing that, the pilots work through a bunch of issues. Again, there's this talk about, you know, single pilot operations. This is a really good example, again, of why having 2 pilots on the flight deck allows you to work as a team to come up with a good outcome.
I mean, in a world where everything's becoming automated, as you say, this is a good advertisement for why 2 pilots are needed. There is some talk that perhaps future flights won't have pilots at all. I guess this sets that back a little bit. Don't you reckon?
Yeah, I wouldn't be putting my family on a plane that only had even one pilot. And as I said, one of the other big things is that, the reason that Qantas has such a rich tradition of history with its aviation excellence is because we've all learnt from the previous generation. So I've learnt for over my 20 years in Qantas from, all the other, the phrase is, from pilots that have forgot more than I'll ever know. So the thing is, if you've only got one pilot on the flight deck, you don't have that option. So, I think 2 pilots on the flight deck, that's why we get good outcomes like we did yesterday.
My friend Pete is a very nervous flyer, so he will appreciate you giving him these reassurances this morning, Mark. Mark Hofmeyer, we really appreciate it.